First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
This October, we explore what it means to cultivate compassion. And so I want to suggest that we be guided today by three questions. What is compassion? What does it feel like to receive compassion? And what does it look like to be compassionate? So what is compassion? What does it feel like to receive it? And what does it look like to be compassionate? Now, to this first question, I found as a teacher that negative examples go a long way. So, with apologies, Louise and I are going to now role play a conversation in which I will fail repeatedly and in very importantly different ways. I will fail to show Louise the compassion she is seeking. This role play may land for you somewhere in the intersection between hilarious or deeply painful. Hey, Louise, what's up?
Hi, Steve. I just found out a friend of mine died.
I am so sorry to hear that. You know, my goldfish just died as well. Hey, Louise, what's up?
Hi, Steve. I want to let you know a friend of mine just died.
I know exactly how you feel. My friend died last year, and I want to talk about that for a while. Hey, Louise, what's up?
My friend just died.
Louise, in these moments, I try to remember that God only gives us what we can handle. And God is giving you exactly what you need right now. Hey, Louise, what's up?
I almost hate to tell you this, but my friend just died.
Your friend died. Louise, I'm so sorry to hear. What I try to remember in these moments is that our suffering comes from our attachment to impermanent things. And your friend was impermanent. So if you think about it, their passing was inevitable and your suffering is optional. Hey, Louise, what's up?
Steve, my friend just died.
Louise, I'm so sorry to hear that. When I find myself overwhelmed with grief, I try to think about the bigger picture. So in the scope of the climate apocalypse, right? Hey, Louise, what's up?
My friend died.
I'm so sorry to hear that. When I feel overwhelmed by those feelings, I try and remember that if you think about how many children have died in the last few years in armed conflicts and Hey, Louise, what's up?
My friend died.
I can see that you are carrying grief, and it is in your body right now. It is knotting you up. You have to try yoga. There are these poses that really release the grief. Hey, Louise, what's up?
My friend died.
I'm so sorry to hear that. And it feels like everything's out of sorts right now. You have to try turmeric. It is a magical spice. Hey, Louise, what's up?
Hi, Steve. My friend just died.
Girl, I know what you need. We're going to go get some drinks. We're going to do some karaoke. We're just going to shake it off and get back to your flourishing life, okay?
Okay.
Hey, Louise, what's up?
Oh, Steve, my friend just died.
And you are overwhelmed right now. I can see that. I'm going to get you an Airbnb, and you just go to a cottage in the woods for a week. You cry it out, and then come back when you're ready to get back to your best life, okay? That's all I've got. I can't go anymore. Ouch. Ouch. It hurts. It hurts to watch that play out, doesn't it? It hurts to see Louise's sincere grief batted away in so many different directions. It hurts. It hurts because we've all been where Louise is, and it hurts because we've all been where I was. It hurts so much anytime we watch someone's deeply human need for compassion turn into something that is not compassion. Now, as the football commentators might say, Let's review the tape and see what happened. Now, when I say that I lost my goldfish or I lost my friend, these statements shift Louise's grief right back over to me and my grief. Thank you for bringing up the topic. I'll take the conversation from here. You might have even heard things like, oh, wasn't he really old, or things like that. Those are things that would dismiss Louise's right to grieve, because you can only grieve when it fits the following categories. When I went into God only gives us what we can handle, or suffering comes from attachment to impermanence, these are religious statements. They may or may not be helpful to Louise at some point, if that's part of her spiritual meaning making, but certainly not now. And they dismiss her grief and tell her, Louise, you're not really being spiritually mature. When I went into the climate apocalypse is worse, or children who die in war, these statements actually make Louise's grief unethical. How dare you selfishly weep for your friend without weeping proportionately more for the 8 billion of us on this global climate crisis? There's a pie of grief, and you are not proportioning out the slices appropriately. When I moved to have you tried yoga, have you tried turmeric, these statements bypass Louise's grief. They suggest she just needs to reprogram her body with this activity, this supplement, and then she won't feel sad anymore. When I said, let's just go get some drinks, or why don't you go out to the cabin and cry it for a week, they suggest that Louise's grief is curable with an activity, that the present state of sorrow is a waste when she could be living her best life. It's so painful to watch. Now, this is a long way of not answering the question, what is compassion? So we begin with the root words. Passio means suffering, and the prefix com meaning with. Literally, first line in the Oxford English Dictionary, to suffer with another. To be fully present to another person's pain or grief or joy or boredom or whatever. To be in the feeling with another person. Who wants to experience more suffering? I mean, who among us wants to take on more suffering? I think we can understand why, despite our best intentions, we sound like me in so many conversations. It's, I would say, normal to not want to experience more suffering. Life is giving you plenty of suffering before you add someone else's. I mean, do you like touching hot stoves? Or did you learn by doing it once, that's hot and painful, I shall now avoid it? Do you like grief and anxiety and anger? Or have you perhaps learned to avoid those? Sit with that for a minute. How often in the day do you feel like you have the extra bandwidth to be fully present for another person's feelings? I got you, Bo. To take in someone else's sorrow without having it sink you, to hold the space for someone else's rage, to be fully aware of and relate to their anger, but not be yourself overwhelmed by it. This is the question today, because I know this, you do not cultivate compassion until you first recognize how daunting the task is. You don't cultivate the ability to suffer with another person until you recognize that you have natural defenses against that suffering. You don't cultivate compassion if you don't want to be present for your own feelings. Still haven't answered the question about compassion, and that's because I'm not an English major. I married one, and I realize that I get the words sympathy and empathy and pity and compassion. They all sort of get mixed up into a Venn diagram for me. So let's break it down. Sympathy is what happens when you recognize another person's suffering and you feel sorry for them. Empathy is what it means to understand and feel that person's feeling. That's not compassion. Compassion is the spacious, empathetic understanding of the other person's feelings plus the offer of support. Sympathy is like a passive verb. It recognizes. Compassion is an active verb. It's a caring move to support this other person. When you say, I see that you're in pain, that's pity. When you say, I care that you're in pain, that's sympathy. When you say, I understand what it's like for you to be in pain, that's empathy. And when you say, how can I support you, that's compassion. There's a visual aid here in this slide. And on this picture, I know you can't all read it, but there's a moving level of engagement. So pity is just, I acknowledge that you're suffering. And you can engage yourself more when you say, I care about your suffering. And further engagement to, I am feeling with you your pain. And compassion is in, how can I support you in that? It's a question of how engaged you are. Thank you. Many spiritual traditions will place compassion as their guiding star for how we are to be in the world with one another. In Buddhism, for example, a bodhisattva is someone who, through their own practice, has arrived at the gates of nirvana, and they can liberate themselves from this world of suffering, this samsara, and yet they choose to stay here and help as a devotion to compassion. In Christianity, the first disciples of Jesus didn't sit around talking theology. They did love-centered ministry. They healed the sick. They fed the hungry. They cared for the oppressed. In ancient Greece and Athens, Plato gave his life in order to free people from the smooth-talking hypocrites in the sophist industry. His dedication to truth was a compassionate gift in a world of artful lying. Sound familiar? So the bodhisattva, the disciple, the lover of wisdom, they all lead with this: I see that you are suffering. How can I help you? What is compassion? Compassion is the spacious understanding of another person's feelings, plus that offer of support. Now that brings us to the second question. What does it feel like to receive compassion? And I want you to take a minute to reflect on a time when you received compassionate care, spacious understanding with help. It might feel like, thank you for affirming me. Thank you for affirming that I'm not crazy, that I'm not too much, that I'm not being weak. Thank you for affirming that it's okay to feel how I'm feeling, that I don't have to perform or mask with you, that when I receive your compassion, I feel like I belong. It might feel like, thank you for understanding me. It's been so hard to explain to other people what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, but I feel that you understand me. In hearing you reflect back my experience with your compassion, it makes me feel connected and heard. This bowl is wandering. It may feel like, thank you for supporting me. Whether or not I choose to carry this by myself or continue to reach out for help, I appreciate that you heard me and offered your support. It might feel like, thank you for giving me hope. You didn't try to fix me. You didn't give me a 10-point plan, but you understood me, you related to me, you supported me. And so I'm beginning to realize that I won't always feel this way. I can start to imagine a future where I will carry this grief but not be buried by it. I cannot stress how important it is that we breathe into this feeling of receiving compassion, that we name how transformative it is to be affirmed and understood and supported and given hope. Because as I just shared a few minutes ago, our natural defenses will come up when someone comes to you with their big feeling. So responding with that compassionate presence is hard. It's counterintuitive. But we all do hard things when we know that they are worth it. And so you have to know what it feels like to know that it's worth it. When you show up for one another with compassion, that value of presence, that affirmation, that understanding, that support, that hope, it's priceless. And that's what brings us to the third question. What does it look like to be compassionate? Now, when the Celebrant team met to plan this October theme, this was the question that drove our conversation. What does compassion look like? How is it different than pity? How do we know that we are being compassionate and not just heroes? What the team arrived at was this word: presence. Presence. Compassion means being fully present for this other person. It's a spacious kind of presence. It's a patient presence. That's hard. It's hard because it asks two very big things of you. It means that you know what you are feeling in your own mind and heart and body. And that second, you can set those feelings down. To be present without your own agenda, without your own racing thoughts, without your own giant cloud of feelings that will block your ability to be spacious with this other person. I'm guessing that throughout the week you find yourself in a pretty wide range of emotional states if you are alive in the world. Sometimes you'll have had a beautifully calm hour to yourself, and someone will come flying into your life with a crisis, and you are able to be present with them because you've just finished your lovely morning walk or some time in the garden, and when your friend calls, you're spaciously present and you're able to be compassionate. That is a gift. You feel so much more connected with that person, and they feel affirmed and understood and supported and hopeful. It becomes spiritually deepening for both of you. And sometimes someone catches you at the very bottom of a very dry well, and they share with you their crisis, and in that moment you are not able to be present with them. You saw me do it 100 different ways. You're juggling work and kids simultaneously 7 days a week, or you're trying to navigate a massive conflict among the grandkids, or your neighbor just yelled at you about the political sign on your lawn, maybe? No? Okay. Or you were on the phone with the insurance billing person for 2 hours. Whatever it is, someone then comes to you with their grief or their anger or their boredom or their problems, and you've just fixed 340 problems at work, so you're right in fixing mode, and you start with, you know what you ought to do is... Or maybe you're emotionally numb from that fight and you give yourself a, wow, that sounds really bad for you, I'm so sorry. Or you're emotionally wounded and you turn it back and you say, well, you know, some of us have our own problems. One of the many deflections. Now, next week, we're looking at the importance of self-compassion, that it's really hard to be present and compassionate for others if you don't know what being present and compassionate for yourself feels like. For today, let me just leave you with this. You're not a horrible person. If you've ever tried to fix or save or pity or deflect someone else's emotional need, or a new sermon that I'm about to write called The Midwestern Ostrich, it just means you're a person. You're a human being out there humaning in a complex world. Now, I would hate to leave you in this darkness here. I want to give you 2 ropes that will carry you from the house to the barn in the dark of the storm. The first is this. As Unitarian Universalists, we declare that everyone has inherent worth and dignity. That person who comes to you sharing their sorrow has worth and dignity. And that is the gateway. That's the shortcut to remind you that they have complexity. The person seeking out your compassionate presence is a complex person. There's that one time when they were on a date in 9th grade and they started laughing as they were drinking milk, and the milk came out their nose, and they haven't stopped laughing about it in 50 years. Or they organized a blood drive when there was an accident at the factory and the county hospital did not have enough type O. Or that they love strawberries but never raspberries. They're complex. Our commitment to see the worth and dignity in everyone is a rope that'll carry you there. It'll help you to see the other person as a person and not a thing. And when we do that, we move immediately from a sort of indifference or deflection to at least sympathy. Now, cultivating the deep presence of compassion is long, deep work with spiritual practice. But it has to start with, wait a minute, I'm seeing in this moment that you are a person with worth and dignity. And that creates the space where I will be present with you. So what does it look like to be compassionate? It looks like presence. It looks like seeing the complexity of this other person. That's one of the ropes. And the other rope is this. It's the lesson we learned from The Rabbit Listened. About 20 years ago, something went wrong with my voice. I was a graduate student singing all these opera leads, but I kept losing my voice, and not from over-singing. It would just go. I think one year I spent 5 months voiceless. I went through all the things. I raged at the sky. I drowned myself in self-pity, whatever it was. But there is a funny thing about being voiceless that long. You get a lot better at listening. Of course, how could you not? Now, the first day you lose your voice, you try to pantomime all of your thoughts. That doesn't work. 2 to 3 days in, you start trying to write everything down on a notepad. 4 days in, you get environmental and you buy a Magnadoodle. After a week or two, you just stop trying to get all your thoughts out. You stop centering. your own thoughts. Being present for other people becomes actually the only way to engage with other people in the world. I get why monastic traditions practice vows of silence. It's not that you can't share your thoughts as they emerge in your brain. It's that you become deeply interested in being present for other people because that's the only way you get to be in relationship. What does it look like to be compassionate? It looks like presence. It looks like seeing the complexity of the other person. It looks a lot like listening. I'm under no illusion that you or I are going to leave this auditorium and become magically compassionate to all beings all the time, henceforth. But we can begin to cultivate compassion. And so I try to look for these two ropes, these two signs in our conversations, and look for them this week. First, am I remembering that this person I'm talking to has worth and dignity? Do they have a complex and rich life that I know a little bit about? And then, what would happen if I spoke less and listened more? That moves you to presence, which is to say, it creates the space for compassion to emerge. And if you have the chance after one of these beautiful, compassionate conversations, check in with yourself. How did you feel at the end of that interaction? And how does the other person feel? I am willing to bet you that these more present and compassionate conversations feel more alive. They feel more connected. They feel charged with the power of two humans seeing one another fully. That won't happen all the time. Sometimes you'll have difficult conversations where you took over and you'll feel really bad about yourself. And when that happens, you have to try turmeric. It is a magical spice. May it be so.